Alright, so a few days ago I actually had some Boll Python eggs that were hatching. We actually did an egg cutting video. We cut those eggs open and took a quick peek inside those eggs, and believe it or not, one of those Boll Python hatchlings came out with no eyes, which is kind of the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I've never hatched a Boll Python that didn't have any eyes. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take a closer look at the one with no eyes and the other ones in that egg box. I kind of peeked in the incubator and it looked like all those hatchlings had come completely out of all the eggs, so we can actually take them out and take a closer look at them. Then what I want to do is I want to pick some names out of the jar and give them each names and then put them up in the hatchling racks. Alright, so this is my Ball Python egg incubator that I built from a 6-foot tall beverage cooler. It's been working fantastic for the last 5 years. I think I built it like 5 years ago. Currently it's full of mostly reticulated python eggs, except one box right on top, and that has the hatchlings that we're going to look at today. You can see these are all albinos. You can actually see, if you kind of peek in there, it looks like they all came out. So I'm going to pull that box out of the incubator and let's check it out. Alright, so here's the egg box fresh out of the incubator, and this was actually a cross between an albino and an albino pied. So all of these will be albinos, 100% het pieds. Believe it or not, these were actually laid on February 12th. The eggs in February, how crazy is that? Usually I get my eggs like late April, early May. I haven't even gotten any eggs yet, which is kind of crazy. So these were like really unusual as far as being laid so early. And then on this, essentially what I did is when I first started the incubation, I actually had too much airflow in these eggs and they kind of dried out a little bit. Then halfway through the incubation I completely sealed it until they started pipping, and then after they started coming out of the eggs a little bit, I had a little crack just for an air hole. I'm always worried about the hatchlings running out of air as they come out of the eggs. I've actually had some that were DOA coming out of the eggs. So take a look at that. I absolutely love albinos. These are just straight albinos with no other genes in there. So take a look at those. Beautiful, beautiful albinos. And I believe there are 5 of them in here. Let's see, 1, 2, that is pretty goopy right there. 3, 4, 5. Another thing with this is one of the reasons they also dried out is because I normally use vermiculite, and I completely ran out of vermiculite, and I couldn't get any at the hardware store because it was out of season in the middle of February, in early February, which is kind of crazy. Well, these were actually, it was actually laid the 12th of February. Instead, I was actually reading the 2nd, it was the 12th, kind of the middle of February. You can't even find vermiculite, so I used perlite, and it seems like the perlite dries out a little bit faster than the vermiculite. So let's take a look at what we have here. Nice, beautiful albinos. Take a look at these beauties. Hopefully we don't have any other random defects on these. So I know sometimes you can have genetic defects on some of your albinos. I was actually reading in the comments, and some people said the defects were more common when you breed a visual albino to a visual albino, versus if you produce an albino from breeding hets, you don't get as many genetic defects. I don't know if that's true or not, but these guys are looking great. This guy looks good. No kinks or anything here. Kind of really skinny hatchlings. Really kind of super skinny. This guy's looking good too. This guy looks like a really high white. They all look kind of like a high white. Alright, so here's the one we've been waiting for. Take a look at this crazy snake. No eyes, none at all. Take a look at that. That is really bizarre on this one. Let me move this box out of the way here. We'll take a closer look at this one. This one is really interesting. No eyes. That's the weirdest ball python that I've ever seen in my life. That thing is crazy looking. And as far as what I've seen, apparently some people have actually hatched one of these. And I've actually seen reports of people saying that they eat just fine, they just can't see. And if you actually look at the face of the ball python, it actually has little holes right around the snout right here, and those are heat pits. And the heat pits is kind of like infrared vision for a ball python, where they can actually see in the dark. They can see the heat signature from a rodent. So even though he has no eyes, technically he can still kind of see. Oh, this is kind of interesting too. Take a look at that. He's kind of has a look at his belly right there. Hope that's not a problem. Kind of has a like a little spot right where the umbilical cord was. You can see right there, like right there. I actually had one ball python with a really huge mass. It was a really big round kind of a spot right there. And I actually brought it to my veterinarian, and she actually went in there with the tweezers and pulled it out. It was like this huge mass, and she pulled it out, and then she went in and did stitches around where the umbilical cord was, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, that's a really unusual looking ball python. Hopefully my other ones aren't getting away. Ah, I should have closed this up. They're starting to sneak out. All right. So that is this one. Like, the funny thing about this is after I did that the video with the egg cutting and kind of showed this in the egg cutting, I had like 30 people contact me. It must have been at least 30 people, and everyone wanted to buy the eyeless ball python. And some people are even texting me, which normally people don't even text me. It's usually I don't respond to like texts or emails because, you know, my emails, I get like hundreds every day. I can't even look at my emails. I get so many of them. And my texts and you know, trying to call me, it's like, yeah, forget about it. It's just my phone. It's just too busy. I can't even keep up with it. And take a look at this one. This one is super skinny. I've actually seen that in some of these albinos where they come out kind of underweight. And this one seems really underweight, really super skinny. They usually do really well. It's just, it takes them a little bit longer to get up to size. And when you get down the road, like 4 or 5 months, you'll actually notice that some of your hatchlings are a lot bigger than some of the other ones. And I think it's really depends on how big they start as a hatchling. I've actually seen some hatchlings start really super heavy, like almost 3 times as thick as this. Look at how long and skinny he is. That is kind of crazy. So that's kind of an interesting one there. Doesn't have any problems with the umbilical cord. Alright, let's take a look at this one. This one, you can kind of see with this one, that, you know, freshly hatched, you can kind of see with the umbilical cord on that one too, which is not really a problem. You just kind of have to keep an eye on it. This guy is looking really good. Seems really high white on this one, like it has a lot more white. I know if you mix in dark genes, like if you mix in blackhead or black pastel with a lot of these albinos, it'll actually increase the amount of white, and you'll get like a low amount of yellow on your albinos, which I've seen them, but I've never actually worked a dark gene into it because I don't have any dark genes here in my collection. This guy, it's kind of interesting. All these kind of have this orange head, which is kind of unique on these. Let's take a closer look at this one here. Looking good. No problems that I can see on this one. You always want to check for the mouth, you know, deformities in the mouth or anything like that. And it's weird. It seems like with albinos, they're not really known for genetic defects, I'd say, as far as, you know, some of the other ones that are kind of frowned on because of the genetic defects. It's pretty rare that you get defects with albinos, although you do get some, which is kind of unfortunate. This guy, let's kind of stretch him out a little bit, see if he's okay. This guy's an interesting pattern right on the top. Kind of a jumbled up pattern. As far as I know, these are just straight albinos, no other genes. In here we got one more we want to look at here. This one right here is looking pretty chunky. Not too bad. Let's kind of stretch them out a little bit. Alright, so this one's got a pretty normal pattern. got these guys are kind of trying to escape here. This guy's got like little orange spots. Like I actually see this in my bamboos. These little tiny spots, almost like almost looks like spaghetti sauce that someone spilled on the snake, which is kind of interesting. You see it in albinos and in bamboos. And albinos are also known for paradoxing. That, you know, a lot of times you get like a really dark black splotch just randomly on the snake. I don't see any paradoxing in any of these albinos. Alright, so of course the one that's coming out is the one with no eyes. Take a look at that. I know some people don't like albinos because of the red eyes, kind of freak them out. maybe this is the cure for their fear for the albinos, have an albino with no eyes. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I want to show you how I set them up in my hatchling rack. I'm going to pull out a hatchling tub and we'll set it up and we'll give these guys names. I actually have a whole jar of names. I actually cut them out from a piece of paper, put a bunch of names on there. These were viewer suggested names. And I normally just randomly pull a name out for each snake, give it a name, and put it up in the hatchling rack. Alright, so I'm sure everybody sets their hatchling racks up a little bit different. This is actually this is a tub from a hatchling rack that came from ARS Caging, one of the more expensive racks that you can actually get. And the way I set it up is I use this coconut husk chip. So it's actually the small chips of the coconut husk. And I put it in pretty much the whole thing all the way down to maybe about 2/3 the way up of the water cup. If you get it too high, they'll actually push the coconut husk in the water, and sometimes it'll be like completely covered with coconut husk and they can't drink any water, so you have to keep checking on the water to make sure they don't push a lot of the bedding in there. And then what I like to do is I like to leave a little spot right over here over the hot spot. And then the hot spot is actually, I set it at 90 degrees so they can get right on here, and this is almost 90 degrees right on the hot spot. And then they can actually, most of the times they'll actually crawl up on the bedding and take a drink, you know, go to the bathroom up here usually, and then they'll go back and kind of hang out on the hot spot. So this has been working fantastic for me. And as far as spot cleaning, I just, you know, kind of spot clean the coconut husks, and then usually like once a month I go through and change out the coconut husk. So that's what I'm using for this. This actually has a one of the disposable deli cups. I think this is like a 8-ounce deli cup. And I wash my own deli cups. I've been using the same cups for 5 years, and I just wash a few every day, and it's been working fantastic. If you actually buy a lot of cups, it can be really expensive going through a lot of cups. Alright, so the first one we're going to pull out is the one with no eyes. Alright, and then we're going to give him a name. Him or her. So on a lot of these names I actually chose gender neutral names. So a lot of times there's only a couple names that aren't gender neutral. I actually pulled out a name last year. The name was Elvis, and you know, of course it's a boy's name. And Elvis last year was actually a girl. I thought that was pretty funny. I had a 50-50 chance of getting a girl or a boy from Elvis. Alright, so here we go. I just pulled off the name right off the top. So this is my new, I guess it's going to be a new pet because I'm going to hang on to it. A lot of people wanted to buy this. I decided to hang on to it to grow it up a little bit. And this guy's name, a gender neutral name, her name is Cookie. Alright, so for this guy, since he really can't see the water, he can't see anything, so I don't really know what to do with this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put his tail right in the water just a little bit and set him right on the coconut husk so he knows there's some water in there by touching it instead of actually seeing it. Hopefully, I'm thinking maybe I should lower that water down in case he gets kind of stuck in there. I don't think he gets stuck, even though he can't see anything. I think he should be fine. I'm kind of worried about the poor little guy. So another thing I have on the front of my tubs, all my Ball Python tubs, I actually have this feeding card. And this I actually just used, These are actually for baseball cards. These little holders. It's like a baseball card sleeve. And then this is just like a blue 3x5 card that was blank, and I ran it through my printer and then printed out all the months on there so you can see the whole year. And then every week, so I put 5 weeks in every month, and then 3 sections right here, which is up to a maximum of 3 meals per snake. So when they eat, you can actually check it off. If they eat a couple times a week, you can actually have multiple checks. Then you can just look at it at the end of the year or halfway through the year, and you can actually see exactly how many meals they've had and how they're doing. I put these on all my tubs. They've been working fantastic. And then I put a little piece of Scotch tape right on the end, because if you don't have the Scotch tape, it gets lost in the card and you can't get it out. So you have to put a little bit of Scotch tape to pull it out. And then on the back, I use some Velcro. And I suppose I could dig up all the Amazon affiliate links if you want to kind of do this. This is really awesome. Some of these cards were a little bit too wide to fit in here, so I put them on my paper cutter and kind of trimmed them down a little bit. Just a little bit to fit in there. But a lot of them, I'd say most of them actually fit. I just had to trim a few, which wasn't bad at all. But that is a really good system to keep track of feeding. Alright, so another thing I do for all my ball pythons is I print out an identification label for every single one. So at a glance you can see pretty much all the information. So this one, I put the name Cookie. It's actually C0122, which is the clutch 01. So it's the first clutch of 2022. This is an albino het pied, and then at the end I put no eyes. So you can actually see which one has no eyes, just kind of, you know, scanning through them. And sometimes if I have some weird anomalies, I'll actually put it on there, but usually not. Usually I'll just list the genes on there. Alright, so I'm going to take another snake out of this box here, out of the hatchling box. I'll just randomly pull one out here. So as far as telling the males from the females, usually what I do is I wait until they've had a few meals. It seems like if you probe them too early, I've actually had quite a few times where I misidentify the males and the females. And it seems like it's a lot more accurate once they've had at least 6 meals once they're ready to go. So I don't even bother probing them at this size. I think what it comes down to is the probe kit that I use. It's actually a metal probe, and you put it in the tail pocket, right in the tip of the tail here. And if it goes in really deep, then it's a male, and if it goes in just a little bit, it's a female. And I think the problem is the smallest probe that I have isn't small enough to go into the tail pocket of these really small snakes. I think the snake has to be a little bit bigger in order to properly probe it. So this guy is, I'd say, he's a pretty good size for a hatchling, maybe a little bit smaller compared to normal. Not too bad. I've actually had one less than half this size. That's probably the smallest hatchling I ever had. That thing was, I think it was a twin, and one of the twins died. It was just like a mass in the egg, and that thing was so incredibly small. This guy's looking really good. No problems at all. And usually I don't even feed them until they shed for the first time. It's usually about a week after they come out of the egg before they shed for the first time. So that guy's looking really good there. Kind of a little bit camera shy. Alright, so let's pull a name for this guy. Or girl, whatever it is. And the one thing I have to kind of watch out for on these names is sometimes I can have duplicate names in the same year, which gets really confusing because everyone wants this, you know, this certain name, and it's actually multiple snakes. So I have to make sure that I don't pull multiple names that are the same. Alright, so this guy's name, guy or gal, this snake's name is Macaroni. So another thing I do with these labels is usually when I first label them, I won't put the male or the female on the label because obviously you don't know at first. And then after I figure out the males and the females, I'll change the label to indicate the gender of the ball python. So I'll reprint it and put male or female. And then what I'll do is I'll actually take the label. These actually have kind of like a sticky back on the back where you can stick them to something. And what I like to do is I like to stick them to these, it's actually magnetic tape. and I can just stick these right on my tub, right above the tub. Then if I move the tub, say for example, if I actually move like the male over with the female, I can take the label with the male, move it over to the female, and then just at a glance I can see where my males and females are and exactly what's going on, and I can see all the genes. I can see when they were born, what clutch they were from, the name of the snake. It's a lot of information that you can quickly move from one tub to the other, which is pretty awesome. Alright, so I want to pull out another Ball Python hatchling here. Another albino het pied. Well, they're all albino het pieds. Alright, so let's take a look at this one. A little bit closer of a look. And it's kind of interesting, even though they're all the same genes, that you'll see significant differences between the snakes. They all have their individual personalities. Some of them are thicker as far as the thicker bodies. Some of them are thinner. And as they age and mature, you'll actually see that some of them will tend to eat a little bit better than others. Usually these albinos are pretty mellow. I haven't really had a problem with them like getting really aggressive as hatchlings. The most aggressive hatchlings I've had, I think, were the double hets, the albino pied double hets. I hatched out a whole bunch of those one year, breeding my albino pied to a whole bunch of different stuff. It seemed like all of them were really snappy, which is unusual for ball pythons. But look at how long and skinny he is. Really super skinny on this guy. Alright, this is your new home right here. Alright, so I'm going to pull out another name out of the jar. We'll see if I like the name before I give it to him. If it's Elvis, I might change it. Alright, this is a good name. Alright, so this guy's new name is Scooby. That's a pretty good name. Alright, so I think we're down to just 2 more snakes in here. They're both albino het pieds, obviously. Alright, so let's take a closer look at this guy before we give him a name. Looking pretty good. And you can tell they look pretty dry. They're not really as vibrant as they normally are because they haven't shed out yet. As soon as they shed, they're probably the brightest as far as the intensity and the brightness of the snake. Usually the young hatchlings are really super bright right after shed. A lot of times you'll actually see a little bit of fading in a lot of your morphs, except with the albinos. It seems like a lot of times the albinos can really hold on to the contrast and the brightness as they age and mature. One of the few that actually look pretty much the same as an adult versus a baby. But he's looking really good. No problems with any of these that I can see. No kinks in the spine. This guy has both his eyes. No problems there. I always like to look at the mouth to make sure there's no like duck billing or shark mouth or anything like that. Any weird mouth defects. No paradoxing or anything on any of these. Looking pretty good. Alright, buddy, that's your new house right there. At least until you outgrow it. Alright, let's take a look at the name. This is an interesting name. So all these names, I haven't even used these names yet. This is like a new list of names that I threw in here. So these are, I've never actually used these. So this guy's new name is Sneaker. That's a pretty good name too. Alright, so we're down to the last ball python hatchling here. This guy, I guess we're saving the smallest for last. This guy's like really super tiny. Take a look at how small this guy is. Super tiny. I can't believe how small he is. But he should do fine. Sometimes if you get him too small, once in a while you have to do assist feeding on some of the real small ones. Last year what I did is I had some small ones and I didn't have to assist feed any of them out of 100 hatchlings. Well, I had 99 hatchlings last year, and what I did is I took mouse hoppers, live mouse hoppers, and I put them in the tub overnight. I removed the water so the mouse hopper wouldn't drown in the water, and then I put them in there overnight, and all of them ate, every single one. And I think that is the key, to leave the mouse hopper in with the hatchling overnight. And a mouse hopper really can't hurt a baby ball python. If you get a small enough mouse hopper, it should be fine. So that's kind of the key to avoiding assist feeding. 1 year I assist fed, normally I assist feed like maybe 2 or 3 snakes every year. And then 1 year I actually had one that died from assist feeding. I think it got stuck in his windpipe or something like that, and he died with a mouse stuck in his mouth. So after that I was like, I'm trying not to ever assist feed a ball python again if I can help it. So that's kind of my trick, has been leaving the mouse operator overnight. But this guy is like super skinny. Not as skinny as I've actually seen some, but he's looking really healthy. You definitely need some mouse hoppers to start. That's a really small snake. Alright, so I am going to pull another name out of the jar. Let's see. Here's a good name for this one. Alright, my smallest snake. This is the perfect name for my smallest snake. This guy's name is Biggie. Oh, that's funny. Alright, so I want to finish up with one last look at Cookie. Cookie is the snake with no eyes. Kind of the weirdest ball python. So take a look at that. He has like little indentations to where his eye used to be. Kind of weird. It's the weirdest thing to have a snake that actually can't see what's going on. You know, sometimes the snake will actually kind of give you the evil eye. It'll be really scared of you and it'll kind of look you in the eye and kind of freak out and kind of freeze like it's going to bite you or something. And you definitely don't have to worry about that with this guy. Kind of the craziest thing I've ever seen. A snake with no eyes. Another interesting, kind of a weird anomaly in snakes that you see once in a while is a snake with 2 heads. I haven't actually hatched out a snake with 2 heads, but I was wondering if at some point I would actually hatch one out. It's just kind of weird that he can't see me. He can't see me, so he doesn't really get freaked out by looking at me into my eyes. Usually the hatchlings, you know, they look at you in your eyes and they kind of get freaked out a little bit. So this guy is completely different, where he has a lot more confidence, I'd say, right out of the egg. It's kind of an interesting effect on this guy, not having any eyes. His other eye is pretty much the same as the other one. That's just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. No eyes at all on that snake. That's just really bizarre. Alright, so there you have it. That is my new snake with no eyes. And I'll definitely be giving you updates on this one as far as if it feeds and how often it feeds, any problems feeding or anything like that. I think it would shed okay. The only thing that would really be different is maybe the temperament, because it can't really be afraid of you because it can't see you. And that and the issue with feeding, and as far as what I've heard from other people, a snake with no eyes feeds just fine. I think it's because of the heat pits, and it can actually see the infrared with the heat pits. But that's a really interesting snake. Seems like it should thrive okay. Looks pretty good. Kind of has an interesting pattern to it, slightly kind of a jumbled up pattern compared to some of the other ones maybe. Take a look at that pattern. Definitely looks like it could use a few meals, that's for sure. Alright, so there you have it. That's the weirdest snake I've ever hatched out in my life. The other weird one was that really super tiny, it was actually a spider pied. It had a yellow belly, and I can't remember what else was in it. It was an all-white snake with like a bright orange head. It was like super small. It was the size. It was skinnier than a pencil. It was super skinny. It was like one of my twins. And that one, even though it was really super skinny, it ate right out of the chute, and it was eating on a regular basis every single time, even though it was the skinniest snake that I ever hatched out. Alright, so there you have it. I'll definitely keep you updated on this little guy. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.